Welcome to today's webinar. The topic is Utility Incentive Programs for HVAC Applications. We're going to specifically focus on the market surrounding the Chicago area. So that'd be Chicago, suburbs, Milwaukee and its suburbs, Northwest Indiana, South Bend area, and a little bit of Southwest Michigan there. So pretty much wrapping around the whole bottom of Lake Michigan. So that's the area we're going to focus on, and we're going to specifically try to focus on all the rebate changes that have occurred and been tweaked since May and June. We will, as we go through various utilities and states, try to let you know which time frames of various utility rebates are available from, so you'll know when they expire. Different states have a little bit different guidelines. So real quick at the beginning here, just to kind of make sure we're on the same page. You guys have probably seen us use this slide 100 times already, but it's basically just to get everybody believing that we do use quite a bit of energy in the building sector, specifically buildings, both commercial, residential, as well as institutional buildings combined, use about 40% of the total energy in the United States. So that's 40% of everything. 28% is transportation, 32% is manufacturing, and 40% is residential, commercial, and institutional buildings. And you can see by the chart on the right-hand side there, a very large chunk of that, the whole section in red, is related to space heating. We also spend quite a bit of energy and money on lighting, domestic water heating, cooling, and ventilation needs, as well as refrigeration. What we're going to do today is we're going to go through all the residential rebates for all the utilities, and then halfway through we're going to switch and go through all the commercial rebates. So if you only need to see one or the other, feel free to multitask if you need to. We'll go through residential first. So you can see this is residential energy consumption. This data is 2 years old now, but it's still fairly current. Almost half of the energy consumption used residentially goes towards space heating. We're probably a little bit even more so biased here in the Midwest towards space heating than other parts of the country. Only about 10% is used for cooling, and 15 to 20% is water heating related. We're going to talk about a few different things here before we get into utilities, so you can kind of see where things are trending. Up on the screen right now is a chart of the International Energy Conservation Code over time. So you can see as it gets further and further along, it gets more and more stringent, requiring less and less energy use in residential buildings. Things were fairly flat for about 10, 15 years, from the early 90s to the mid-2000s. And I can see with the 2009 version, it gets ratcheted up pretty quickly. Illinois is currently on the 2009 version of the IECC. Neighboring states are on similar versions. I think Wisconsin may have just updated from 2006 to 2009. The big change coming in Illinois is that we're switching to the 2012 version. That was supposed to happen on June 30th. It got pushed back to August 4th because certain steps have to be taken in order to do that. So right now the launch date for converting to the new building code is August 4th, 2012. With that being said, there is a bill that has passed the House and the Senate and is sitting on the governor's desk that will delay that start till January 1st to give more time for education. But energy codes are getting more and more stringent, which means equipment as well as installation practices are getting much more difficult. And energy savings, you can see, has been ratcheting down quite heavily. I think the magic goal is by the year 2030 we use net zero energy. You probably can't see my fingers crossed right now, but they are. In addition to codes getting more stringent, manufacturing standards are getting more stringent for energy as well. A lot of you are probably aware that we switched on the residential side from 10 SEER to 13 SEER a couple years ago. Now there's a bunch of similar things happening on the gas side of the equation. The first one coming up is this September 1st, so in 2 months. The minimum efficiency for a boiler will increase to 82% for hot water boilers and 80% for steam. Along with that, there'll be the elimination of standing pilots, and you will be required to have some kind of automatic water temperature adjustment, which generally speaking means an outside air reset schedule, but I suppose there's probably other ways you can do that. This law was passed in 2007, and it goes into effect basically 5 years later. So September 1st is the launch date for that. Now, this is a manufacturing standard, so that means if you have product in yours or our inventory, you can still continue to use it after that date. The manufacturers just can't make any new stuff. So that's a big difference between energy codes and appliance standards. Energy codes are implemented at the local, municipal and state levels, and they're implemented at the time of permit and or the time of inspection, whereas manufacturing standards are implemented from the government to the manufacturer at the manufacturing level. So they don't even get into the state with this equipment. With that being said, the Department of Energy has come up with its very first regionalized appliance standard. Normally an appliance standard applies across the board for every state in the entire country, such as that boiler one I just mentioned a minute ago. That applies to all 50 states. However, with this new furnace standard, which is the very first regionalized standard, they divided the country up into 3 regions based on heating usage per year. That entire blue section on top is the north section, which is 5,000 heating degree days or more. Here in our area, the Midwest, around Lake Michigan, we're between 6,000 and 6,300 hours. So we're definitively in the heating climate. However, there are 2 other climates in the south and southwest based on their temperature and humidity profiles. So the way that'll look is on May 1st, 2013 is when we'll go live with the new furnace rules, which means that in our climate zone in the blue area there, the minimum efficiency furnace will be a 90% furnace. As most of you on here probably know, 90% is a condensing furnace. So that's going to have some significant challenges in retrofit applications for certain types of buildings, specifically multifamily. The other standards other than furnaces, so heat pumps and AC and things like that, they do not go into effect until 2015. However, for our climate zone here, they do not change. We will be sticking with 13 SEER air conditioners. Other parts of the country in the south will have to go up to 14 SEER. Overall, I think they got off pretty easy in the south. Going from 13 to 14 SEER is easy. Going from 80 to 90% on the gas side is much more challenging, obviously. This is a done deal. This is finalized. I know there are some pending lawsuits. They are all expected to be dismissed in regards to whether this happens or not. But the most interesting one to follow at this point is how it will be implemented. Because like I said, normally a manufacturing standard gets implemented at the time of manufacture. However, in this case, all the manufacturers will still be producing 80% furnaces, but they won't be shipping them to every state. So they can't tell the manufacturers to simply stop making them. They have to implement it at the local level somehow. So there's quite a bit of debate on how that'll be done, who will have to enforce it, and even when it will go into effect. If I have an 80% furnace in my inventory on June 1st, can I install it? It's not clear right now. So that's kind of up in the air a little bit. I would like to also mention, too, if you guys already don't know how to use GoToMeeting, on the right side corner of your screen, there's a question chat box type area. So if you have questions, you can type them in there. And then as we go through, I'll take a couple pauses to read through them and answer them as we go. All right, so that's the furnace standards. The next one coming up is the water heaters. That doesn't happen until 2015, so I won't go through this one in detail. You can see what the numbers are there. The minimum efficiency for the standard 40 and 50-gallon gas water heaters is going to have to increase from what it is currently up near but not exceeding the current Energy Star levels, so that's not very hard to do. However, on the electric side, if you look at that very last bullet point, when you get above 55 gallons on electric water heating, you will have to have an energy factor exceeding 2, which means that you will not be able to do it with electric resistance heat. It'll have to be a heat pump. So all your water heater manufacturers will probably be soon coming out, if they haven't already, with heat pump water heaters. That'll be the most challenging one out of these 4 changes coming up in 2015. If anybody needs more information on some of these, I can provide it later if you like. There's a bunch more even further down the pipeline, estimating times on here so you can see when they happen. But unit heaters, going to condensing unit heaters as a minimum, is something that you'll probably see happening in the next 4 or 5 years. It'll be likely that the law will pass in 2013, and 2016 is when it goes effective. Same thing for gas-fired equipment commercially, such as rooftop units. It won't be a condensing requirement because that's very challenging on an outdoor roof, but there will be other things that they do to try to increase the efficiency. Gas boilers will probably have to go from condensing up maybe when it gets to 2017, 2018. So some of these things are fairly far away. There's stuff on the books for furnace fans and P-Tacks and motors and pumps and all that kind of stuff. So it's not a one-time deal. This stuff keeps happening. Like I said, the gas boilers changed this September, and they're going to change again in about 5 years. This is the cumulative benefits of these appliance standards over time. You can see on the right-hand side there, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different entities that are making rules related to appliance standards. Sometimes it's a legislative thing like the E-Pact. Sometimes it's a departmental thing like the Department of Energy rules. But you can see over time what the expected savings is to be from some of these ones that are already on the books, let alone the new ones that they're going to be implementing. All right, so there's 3 ways we can incentivize people or force people to save energy. One, like we said, is the energy codes. By making them more and more strict, then you have to put more and more efficient equipment in. Energy codes, by the way, apply to both new construction as well as renovation and even equipment replacement. So don't think because you're just changing out a furnace or a condensing unit that you don't have to comply with the energy code. You certainly do. So code is one way to do it. Appliance standards at the manufacturing level is the second way. And then the third way we do it is by incentivizing the actual homeowners and building owners. Most of you are painfully aware that the federal tax credits for HVAC had all expired 1.5 years ago. However, there are still some that do exist as part of the renewable side of things. And that's the one I have up on the screen right now. So these are federal tax credits that are in effect for another 4 years. They expire December 31st, 2016. And for HVAC specifically, there are credits for geothermal systems, and there are credits for solar thermal water heating. There's other credits available as well, but they're not HVAC related. So just keep that in mind. If someone's working on a solar thermal or a geothermal system, you can get some money federally for that, and that applies both to your main home as well as your vacation home. The rest of the incentives that we have are primarily driven through the utility programs. All these programs work a little bit differently from each other, but for the most part, they're pretty much the same. By that I mean that the utilities have a fund source that they use to pay these various rebates for high efficiency. That funding comes from the ratepayers themselves. So on your utility bill, if you look at it, you will find that you are paying into this program both residentially and commercially. For example, on the screen right now is my Nightcore gas bill. And you can see what month was this. This was February, which was not all that harsh of a February this year, but nonetheless, I paid in $1.80 this year in February, and every single month you pay in. So I probably paid in like $15 over the course of the year. If we have a harsher summer, I'll probably pay in like $25. But you can see right here, I had 189 therms highlighted there, and I basically paid in 1 cent per therm. With that said, just so you know, in Illinois, the rates that people pay into these programs are increasing. I don't know the exact dollar amounts yet, but residentially I believe is going up about 50%, and commercial is going to double or triple. So it's going to be a much larger dollar amount people are going to start seeing on their utility bills, which should drive them hopefully to ask questions about it and then find out about these rebate programs. I do get the question a lot, what happens if I don't get my electric or my gas from a normal supplier? For example, maybe you're not on ComEd power, maybe you're getting power through Blue Star Energy or one of these other third-party suppliers. If you are on the ComEd power line grid, you are still required to pay into the program through your third-party supplier. So even if your customer doesn't have a Nightcore or Peoples or Ameren or ComEd or whatever bill, they're likely still paying into it. There are some municipalities, for example, Naperville, that is not part of ComEd, and hence they're not part of this program and they're not paying into it. So all the stuff going on in Illinois is federally mandated. It's a 10-year program. The electric utilities are on year 5. The gas utilities are on year 2. Plus the gas utilities did have a pilot year before that, but that didn't really count towards the state law. So they're on year 2 of 10. So don't think this is something that's going away. It's something that will continue to be on for another 5 to 8 years, depending on the utility, perhaps even longer after that. So whether your customer is residential or commercial, show them on their own utility bill how they're paying into this program. Let me look real quick to see if we have any questions that have popped up. We do not. So if you have any questions, type them in the bottom right-hand side there into the question chat box. The utility incentives are often broken up into many different categories. Some utilities are running 12, 13, 15 of these programs to try to capture as much therm and kWh savings as they can. The laws in various states do require them both to collect money to fund these programs, as well as save a certain amount of therms and kilowatt hours. And they have to do it in a cost-effective manner, and all that stuff is audited pretty heavily. But some of the common programs that they have are direct equipment installations by contracting companies, so residential dealers or commercial contractors. It's pretty much, for the most part, allowed that any contractor with a business license and things like that would be able to participate. There's residential prescriptive, which are a standard list of things that we're going to go through. X amount of dollars for this furnace, X amount of dollars for that boiler kind of thing. There's a commercial standard prescriptive type program, works the exact same way as residential, just targeted towards different types of buildings. And then there's typically some kind of custom program where if you don't have something that's listed on one of the prescriptive lists, you can apply with a custom application to see if your idea can get some energy savings and hence some rebate. Typical type incentives, like I said, include equipment replacements like boilers, chillers, furnaces. There's also some utilities have programs for tuning up existing equipment and getting it operating more efficiently. There's often incentives for lighting and commercial kitchens and all kinds of stuff like that. We're going to focus on the HVAC stuff here today. There's also programs that are direct install. Direct install does not actually mean the utility is installing it. It means the utility has a subcontractor that's doing the work. Most regular contractors don't like when they hear that because they have this big fear that the utility is stealing all their work. But generally, these programs are not talking about installing a furnace or something like that. They're talking about doing very simple, quick installations of things like screw-in light bulbs, low-flow shower heads, aerators. Maybe a programmable thermostat would be the closest they would come to crossing what a contractor might do. But it's usually simple stuff like that. And if there's any major things that need to be done, you generally refer the homeowner to a contractor. There are also energy auditing programs where for your home or even commercially, you can get a low cost or sometimes even a free energy assessment or energy audit done to walk through your building, walk through your home, and analyze what things can be done to save energy there. Generally, that's limited to a specific set of subcontractors the utility has, but then once the recommendations are made, many contractors may participate. And then the last thing a lot of utilities are starting to do is an on-bill financing type program where they understand it's difficult for someone to fork over $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 to install some new system. And it's difficult to get financing these days. So if you have decent credit, you might be able to finance it through your utility bill, which means that you might get your utility bill from People's Gas, for example, and instead of paying in $200 on your gas bill this month, you may be paying in whatever, I don't even know, $400, because also on top of your gas usage is actually your financing, your actual buy down of your loan for this piece of equipment. So right now we're looking at Illinois, and we will talk about Indiana, Michigan, and Wisconsin. As I said, we're starting in Illinois because most of the people on this call are from Illinois. Plus, that's where I live, so that's the stuff I'm most familiar with. But looking at these maps up here, on the left side is a map of the top half of Illinois. Everything in green is Nightcore gas territory. You can see in some cases they only have partial counties, not an entire county. But for most of the stuff, if you're in the Chicago suburbs, it's highly probable that you are Nightcore gas territory, but obviously you can see it goes even further south and west than that. If you look on the Nightcore map there on the left, up at the top right-hand side, you see that white box that basically is the east half of Lake County. That is North Shore Gas's territory, so that's not Nightcore, it's North Shore Gas. So it's the east half of Lake County and a little tiny sliver of Cook County. And then People's Gas primarily serves the city of Chicago. There may be a couple little overlap spots on the border, but generally speaking, People's Gas is the city of Chicago and vice versa. The rest of the state of Illinois, gas-wise, is covered by Ameren. So central Illinois and downstate Illinois is all Ameren. On the electric side of the equation, pretty much the north half of the state is ComEd, and the central and southern halves are Ameren. The Nightcore territory does overlap between both ComEd and Ameren. If you're in the Chicago area, chances are highly probable that you are a ComEd customer, with the exception of 5 very specific municipalities such as Naperville, like I mentioned before. So starting with the Nightcore side residentially, these are the current rebates that began on June 1st. Some of them are very similar to the ones we have last year. They try to change as few as possible to offer as much consistency from year to year. But just going through them real quick, The very first one is an Energy Star storage water heater. So this is a typical tank type water heater, your usual 40, 50 gallon type thing. If it has an energy factor of 0.67, it is eligible for a $200 rebate. The price difference between a low-end entry-level water heater and a 0.67 is less than $200. So this is one of those kind of rebates that I'm amazed that every single person does not take advantage of, because it doesn't cost you any extra money to pick the right one. So in any case, that's the deal there. Furnaces, there are two tiers currently, which are 92 and 95% AFUE, corresponding to rebates of $200 and $250. On the boiler side of the equation, residentially, it's tiered at 90% and 95% AFUE for $350 and $450. And by the way, as we start going through all these different utilities, you're going to see it's very common that furnaces have rebates at 92 and 95 and boilers at 90 and 95. A lot of the AFUE targets are similar because they're all doing similar calculations and coming up with similar answers on what's cost effective. However, the rebate dollar amounts will often change from utility to utility. So those first five were the ones we pretty much had last year. The ones below that are the newer ones. Indirect water heaters is a new one that was just added. It's only a $100 rebate. There's a lot of debate on how much energy an indirect water heater can save. But if you already have a boiler anyway, to not have a water heater and to have this indirect tank sitting there does save quite a bit of energy. But you wouldn't do it just because. You'd have to already be an owner of a boiler. So if you are going to change out your boiler and put in a high efficiency 90 or 95% boiler, on top of the $350 or $450, you can add an indirect storage tank for your domestic water and have it sitting next to your boiler. Basically, your boiler sends hot water over to a coil, which heats up your domestic water. If you do both those at the same time, you can get an extra $100 rebate on top of the boiler rebate. So if you put a 95% boiler in with an indirect heater, you will get a rebate of $550. The next one is hot water pipe insulation. If you insulate at least 6 feet of pipe on your hot water line coming off your regular water heater or your indirect water heater for that matter, they'll give you an extra $10 rebate. That rebate needs to be combined with one of the above rebates. You can't just do that one by yourself because it's not really worth processing $10 worth of paperwork. But if you get a new furnace, water heater, boiler, or indirect heater, you can add insulation to 6 feet of that and get $10 on top of it. So even if they're not changing out their water heater and you do their furnace, you can still do this piece. Another new one on here is window rebates. We're not going to go into that because this is an HVAC audience, but there are rebates for new windows. They got to be pretty efficient. U value 0.2 is pretty good. It's triple pane window. And then lastly, there is a thermostat rebate that was recently added. It's a $20 rebate for a programmable thermostat. So if you change out the furnace, instead of getting $250, you would get $270 if you add a programmable stat to it. A couple quick comments. There's no rebates for instantaneous water heaters, right? Those are those tankless style ones. There's no rebates for that currently. 95% furnaces need to be Energy Star, although there are some things you can do to, well, if you have one that's not Energy Star, call me and I'll help you through that one. And boilers cannot be commercial sized boilers. They got to be less than 300 MBH. So the largest can be a 299, and the boilers have to have outside air reset controls on them, or they got to be permanently locked down to a lower temp. But they want that thing to be in condensing mode as much as possible to save as much energy. All the rebates in the state of Illinois expire on May 31st each year, and then a new program starts on June 1st the next year. In addition to all the gas appliances on the Nightcore rebate program, you can also get a rebate for your air conditioner. This is processed through the Nightcore program. It's on the Nightcore rebate application form, but it is funded through the ComEd side of the equation. So in order to get this rebate, you have to be installing a new furnace that qualifies for the rebate, a 92 or 95. And then on top of that, if you install a 14.5 SEER rated air conditioner with that, in addition to the $200 or $250, you also get another $250 from ComEd. So if you put a 95% furnace in with a 14.5 SEER condensing unit, you get a $500 rebate instead of $250. You cannot get this rebate for a standalone condensing unit from ComEd. There's no mechanism to do that. It has to be done with the furnace through Nightcore. The rating, the SEER rating, needs to be the AHR rating as published on the ahridirectory.org website, and the combination of the condensing unit, the evaporator, and sometimes the furnace fan system need to be worked together to hit 14.5 SEER. These slides will be available online, so if anybody wants more details, they'll be there. I'm not going to read through all these, but these are the specs for the new ones I just mentioned. So the indirect water heaters, the pipe insulation, the programmable stats, etc. Let me check and see if there's any questions that had popped up. No questions, so we're doing good so far. There is also a Nightcore ComEd joint program for home energy audits. Basically, the homeowner pays $100 to get an audit done at a discounted rate. They do some direct install stuff, like I said before, with aerators and shower heads. And then after you've done that audit, you're eligible for some additional incentives for building sealing, building insulation, and I think duct sealing and duct insulation. This is, however, only done by certain subcontractors to that program, as it is still kind of in a startup phase. But you get an extra $1,250. Plus, you could still obviously do the furnace and boiler rebates and all that stuff. The last thing on Nightcore, and then we'll switch to the next utility, is that this Thursday on June 28th, there's a webinar you're going to want to log into if you are a residential contractor servicing the Nightcore area. There are a bunch of new rebates that are starting on July 1st. It's called the Summer Staycation Program. It's basically a bonus rebate time just specifically for the months of July, August, and September. So there's 5 new rebates that are going to launch. You can hear about them on this Thursday, but they're going to launch on Sunday, and they're eligible for 3 months just to kind of generate some additional participation in this program. Some of these are fairly exciting with some pretty big dollar amounts, up to $1,500. So you're definitely going to want to log in and see that. You can get to it if you've got an email from Nightcore, or if not, go to tecmungo.com/training, and you should be able to go to webinars and click on the registration form for this guy. Peoples and North Shore Gas is the next utility. Like I said, Peoples is Chicago. North Shore Gas is parts of Lake County and Cook County. I got them grouped here together because they are actually owned by the same parent company and run together as one program. However, the incentives are slightly different depending on which utility you're actually being served by. So you can see here residentially for furnaces, once again, 92 and 95%. At North Shore, it's a $100 rebate or a $200 rebate. At Peoples, it's $300 or $500. So North Shore is a little bit less than Nightcore. Peoples is a little bit higher than Nightcore. There's also rebates on here for boilers, as you can see. Smaller boilers have rebates for $350 and $450 for 90 and 95%. Once again, same AFUE ratings. And the larger are the Peoples ones have $500 and $600 rebates. There's also rebates for adding attic insulation. There's rebates for storage water heaters, once again at an energy factor of 0.67, just like the Nightcore program. North Shore is 150, I believe, and Peoples is 100. They did add tankless water heaters to this program, so those are on here. And then they also have the indirect storage tanks to combine with a boiler. And once again, you have to do it at the same time as a boiler. But the rebates are pretty hefty for those. $200 on top of the $450 you would have got for the boiler, and $275 at Peoples on top of the $900 you would have got for the boiler. The Peoples and North Shore folks, since they overlap with the ComEd territory, are also participating in the Complete System Replacement Program, which means ComEd will kick in an extra $250 for a 14.5 SEER air conditioner. All the same rules as we just discussed for Nightcore apply. You have to do it at the same time as the furnace. The air conditioner is actually on the furnace rebate application form. So on the high end for Peoples, 95% furnace, it's $500 plus the $250 for a total of $750 rebate. At North Shore, it's $200 on the furnace and $250 from ComEd, so it's $450 total when you do both of them at the exact same time. By the way, with all these ComEd air conditioner rebates, heat pumps are not eligible at all. In fact, heat pumps are not, if you have a heat pump, you're not even eligible for the furnace rebate technically. The state law currently prohibits fuel switching, of which heat pump obviously is, if you're switching from a gas furnace to a heat pump, that is fuel switching, so they're not allowed to rebate you on heat pumps. On-bill financing program in Illinois, there's a program for Peoples and North Shore Gas to finance your furnace specifically. Boilers are not currently on this program. It's just furnaces. They can be the 92 or 95% tier. You got to be doing it at the same time you do one of these furnace rebate applications. You pay the loan back on your bill. They can finance up to $20,000. You got to have a decent credit score. I want to say it's like 640, but don't quote me on that. Then you can get a basically a 5% rate with no money down, and there's no cost to the contractors to participate in these programs. ComEd has a similar program for central AC. You have to be doing it at the same time that you do a central AC 14.5 SEER rebate claim, but it would work exactly the same way as Peoples and North Shore Gas. It's actually administered by the same company, AFC First, and processed on the same exact loan form. So you can get the ComEd rebate with Peoples and North Shore Gas furnaces and 14.5 SEER air conditioners. You can also get the ComEd rebate even if you are a Nightcore gas customer. You still got to be getting the the efficient furnace as well as the 14.5 SEER air conditioner. But Nightcore does not have an on-bill financing program currently, but you're still eligible for the ComEd portion of that. So you can finance half of your complete system on that through that program. The other half you'd have to pay for on the furnace side. If you have questions about that, let me know. I can help you with that. There are tons of other low interest type loan programs available. So I'll just give you this website and then we'll move on. EnergyImpactIllinois.org for various counties and towns. Cook, Lake, Will, Kendall, Kane, McHenry, DuPage, as well as the city of Rockford residents are eligible for these reduced rate loans for high efficiency equipment. So furnaces, boilers. So even if you got Peoples over here and you wanted to do a boiler instead of a furnace, you can't do it on your bill, but you can do it through this other program. All right, let me check the questions and then we'll talk about Indiana real quick. We're good on the questions, it looks like. All right, so Indiana has very similar programs as we have in the Illinois area. The main utility that we deal with in Northwest Indiana is NIPSCO. The website's down there on the bottom right. These programs expire on December 31st. It's very likely that they will also continue the following year. But right now it's December 31st. So once again, the boiler tiers are 90 and 95%, just like the other utilities, for $300 or $450. Similar requirements. You got to have modulating burners. You got to have outside air reset control on there, all the same kind of stuff. On the furnace side of the equation, there is a 92% furnace and a 95% furnace, just like the other utilities had, corresponding to $150 and $200 rebates. And then NIPSCO also has a higher tier 95% rebate if your 95% furnace also has an ECM motor on it electrically. You can get extra $100 for a total of $300. NIPSCO also has water heater rebates. So they have a storage water heater rebate for $125. Once again, it has to be a 0.67 energy factor, and they do have a tankless rebate for $150. It's got to be a 0.82. And then they also have a programmable thermostat for $20. So you can see a lot of these utilities have similar tiers on what they consider to be efficient and not efficient. There's also, for NIPSCO customers that have NIPSCO Electric, there's a program there as well. There are some heat pumps on that program. So you can see the first two there are for ductless mini split type heat pump systems. You can get $500 or $300. $500 is if you're just doing it straight up and you're basically converting off of a all electric system, resistance heating system. $300 if you already have a heat pump and you're just upgrading it to a more efficient one. So a little bit of tiering there depending on whether you're heating with electric resistance or whether you're heating with a heat pump currently. And the same thing for split systems on down at the bottom. You can see the specs down there. If you're an existing, actually I want to split up a little differently. It's 16 SEER, 8.4 HSPF, you get $250. 15 SEER, 8.2 HSPF, you get $200 rebate. Those also expire December 31st. Water heater rebates, if you put in a heat pump water heater, it's $300. A storage electric water heater, newer one that gets at least 0.9 F energy factor is $50. That's because most water heaters are pretty close to that anyway. You can just do a straight up ECM motor changeout on your furnace. That's $150 on your existing furnace, or $20 for a programmable stat, just like you could on the gas side. Some of the individual electric co-ops in Indiana also have their own programs that can be used in conjunction or in lieu of the NIPSCO programs. So here are some major ones here. The Wabash Valley Power Association is a group of many Indiana-based local municipal utilities. So they have quite a few rebates, mostly related to heat pumps, and they can get quite large, up to $1,500. On the websites listed there, powermoves.com. And then two specific counties, LaGrange County and Marshall County, also have rebates that you can use on top of the rebates you might get from your utility. So those are listed there if you need them. You get to Michigan. Michigan has a statewide program called Efficiency United that most of the Michigan utilities participate in. The ones that specifically are involved in the area that we service are Michigan Gas Utilities, Sumco Energy, and then on the electric side, Indiana Michigan Power. So these are some of the rebates that are on that program. For those gas and electric utilities, the website's efficiencyunited.com. They also expire on December 31st. So there's programmable thermostats. There is a 92% boiler tier. There are furnaces for 94 or 95%, getting you $100 or $200 rebate. They actually have a furnace tune-up program to get your furnace tuned up and tested and all that, $50. They have rebates for air sealing and insulation. I didn't list them all because it was quite a bit. There's gas water heaters. Once again, 0.67 is the target for those. There's instantaneous water heaters. Once again, 0.82 EF is the target for those. There's rebates for electric water heaters. There's rebates for heat pump water heaters. There's rebates for AC, $150 for a 15 SEER air conditioner. So if you do your furnace and air conditioner at the same time, put a 95% with a 15 SEER, you get a total of $350 rebate. There's rebates for heat pumps on that program, and there's rebates for geothermal on that program. Oh, sorry, and as well as ECM motors. And in this case, they could be an ECM motor added to an existing furnace, or it could be a new furnace coming with an ECM motor. So if you put in a 95% furnace with an ECM motor and a 15 SEER air conditioner, you get 200 plus 100 plus 150, so you get a total of $450 rebate. And once again, in Michigan, some specific programs in municipalities have other things going on in addition to the utility programs, so you could double dip on some of these guys. Energy Smart is the main program. Their website's down at the bottom there. And specific towns that we normally deal in are Niles. And you can get additional money for your furnace or AC or stat on top of what the utility is giving you. And then for those folks in Wisconsin, there are residential programs there as well. It's generally a statewide program up there. Focus on Energy is the name of it. The website's focusonenergy.com. Those rebates also expire December 31st. So basically, kind of as a rule of thumb, Indiana, Michigan, and Wisconsin rebates generally expire on December 31st each year, and Illinois rebates generally expire on May 31st each year. And in almost all cases, the programs renew themselves each year with some tweaks to them. So for furnaces, once again, the tiers here, 90% furnace with an ECM motor, $125, 95% is $275. You notice one of those tiers you can actually take out your propane or oil fired and comply for the rebate as well. Boilers at 90 and 95 again for $300 and $400. Indirect water heaters, as long as you do it when you install a boiler, is $100. They got tankless on there for $100. Storage water heaters, once again, 0.67 energy factor is the key target, although it's only a $50 rebate in Wisconsin. They do have a rebate for condensing water heaters, which doubles it, and there's also one for electric. And then lastly, if you are in the city of Milwaukee proper, there is another program there called Milwaukee Me2. There's the website, smartenergypays.com. You can get either free or low-cost energy assessments and consultations. There's cashback incentives, as you see listed on the screen there. You can get reduced rate financing. And there's also additional monies available to help fix safety issues like combustion problems or electrical problems or something like that. So this one's based on how much energy you save over the baseline. So the energy consultant comes out, sees what you're doing, establishes your baseline, and then you make improvements to your home, and then they measure that again, and then you get up to a $2,000 cash rebate based on what you did there. That's on top of whatever you would have gotten from your utility. There's tons of other programs that are available through the utility or sometimes the state. The ones we just talked about right now were specifically for equipment replacements in HVAC. But there's also programs for new construction. There's AC cycling programs. I've been on that program for 3 years with ComEd. They pay me, I think it's $40 or $50 every summer for the right to cycle my air conditioner, although in 3 years they've only cycled it 2 times. They basically cycled it off from like 2 to 4 p.m. last September, I think, last September 1st. And they paid me, $40, $50 to do that. There's low-cost energy assessments or sometimes free energy assessments depending on the utility. There's programs targeted at multifamily. There's low-income housing, weatherization type programs. There's appliances other than HVAC and appliance recycling. There's lighting rebates. And then there's municipalities that have their own things going on as well. All right, let me check the questions one more time. Let's see if we can wrap up with Res here. All right, no questions. All right, if anybody has any questions, just type them in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and I will do my best to address them. All right, so moving on to commercial. Here is a chart of the commercial energy code efficiency over time. Very similar to the residential one. They tend to be updated at the same time. The International Energy Conservation Code 2012 is the most current version. Illinois is on 2009, and we have been for a few years. I believe Wisconsin's now on 2009, although they just updated to that recently. They were on 2006. Indiana does not follow the IECC. They follow ASHRAE 90.1, which is very similar to the IECC, and they all kind of work the same way, which is they're all getting more and more stringent and more efficient every 3 years. So you can see this chart here, how things have been evolving over time with the stringency dropping. Right now we're basically trying to be double the efficiency of what we were 20 years ago. And once again, the goal is by 2030 we use net zero energy, which means we take as much energy off the building, off the grid for the building as we put onto it on an annual basis. So that's kind of the pipe dream, but in order to get there, we got to save energy now before we can worry about how we're going to start generating energy. Just like the residential Illinois stuff, commercial is the same way. The current date is August 4th when we switch to 2012, although it's highly probable the date will be pushed back to January 1st. So there's, just like with residential, commercial has 3 ways we can kind of boost efficiency. One is through the codes process and having those codes implemented at the state and local municipalities. The other way is to follow on the manufacturing minimum standards that are out there, so for furnaces and things like that. And then the third way is to give people cash back to motivate them to do something. There is a federal tax deduction that is available commercially. There's no tax credit, at least not for regular HVAC. The deduction is slightly different. A tax credit comes off your bottom line tax bill. A tax deduction comes off of your earnings, which then obviously affects your taxes down the road. The tax deduction is $1.80 per square foot. Is broken up into 3 segments: 60 cents per square foot for HVAC, 60 cents for lighting, 60 cents for building envelope. To get this credit, you have to be 50% more efficient than ASHRAE Standard 90.1 2001 version, which is very similar to the IECC 2003 version. If you bring your building up to the current codes, you'll be 40% of that 50 already. So getting your building up to the current code level will get you almost all the way there. If you do a little bit better, you'd be eligible for this tax deduction. You do have to do energy modeling using something like Carrier's HAP program or eQuest or something like that to model the 90.1 2001 standard versus what you're going to have in your building. And this money is available till December 31st, 2013. So there's another 1.5 years on this program. This is a great program if you're going to renovate your building, gut rehab or major renovation. But if you're just going to be changing out a boiler or a chiller or something like that, you're probably not going to be able to do that one thing and get 50% savings on the building as a whole. So it's really for major overhauls of buildings. But you'll still get your customers asking for it even when you change out a rooftop or something simple like that. So you need to understand what it is. So that's the federal tax deduction. The other question I get frequently is, what if I don't have a tax liability? What if I'm a not-for-profit, like a church or something like that? Can I get this tax deduction? And the answer is very probably yes, depending on how you set things up. Obviously, talk to your tax professional. I'll give that normal disclaimer, right? But what you can do if you're a not-for-profit and you don't pay taxes is you can assign your tax deduction to the designer of your system. Designer meaning architect or engineer or somebody like that. You can assign the credit to them, and assuming they have a tax liability, they can take the deduction on your behalf. You have to work with tax professional to figure all that out, but you can definitely do that kind of thing. It is permitted. There is one kind of federal tax credit that's available. So tax deductions can be for anything to save energy in your commercial building. The tax credit is for very specific things to do, and this one is for renewable-based energies. This one I'm showing on the screen right now is for putting in a geothermal heat pump system. You can get a tax credit of 10% of the cost of the system. Plus, you're also eligible for some accelerated depreciation If you do solar thermal water heating, or even solar PV for that matter, it's 30% of the cost of the system instead of 10% like it is for geo. These rebates, or I should say these tax credits, are available until December 31st, 2016. So there's quite a bit of time left on these guys. And then lastly, on the renewable side, there is solar rebates specifically from the state of Illinois. This is for both residential and commercial type buildings. However, residential does not have an HVAC component. The commercial side does have solar thermal water heating as part of that. Actually, you know what? You can do residentially as well. Residentially or business is 30% of the total project cost. And then if you're a public entity or a not-for-profit organization, you can get half of the project cost paid for. The only caveat with this program is it's got limited funding, so the money tends to go very, very quick. So it's not available year-round. It's available for a month or two out of the whole year. So you really, can't bank on it being there. But if you can push someone over the edge and get them to do it when the money's available, it might make some sense. All right, let me check the questions again real quick. We do have a few questions, so let me just go back here to see what the questions were. I've got a question from John on who are the pre-approved energy auditors. I'm assuming that you're referring to the residential program that is Nightcore and ComEd done jointly. And I can go back to that real quick to answer this question. I'm assuming John's referring to this particular program I have here up on the screen. Nightcore and ComEd have a single contractor called Resource Solutions Group, Conservation Services Group, that do the energy audits, and then they have a list of, I forget what it is, 8 or 10 subcontractors that they work with to actually do the installation and sealing measures. So to answer your question, John, if any firm can do it, at the current time the answer is no. Only CSG can actually do the actual audit for the homeowner. But multiple contractors might be able to do the work that's generated because of the audit. The next question said there was a little blip in the audio during the federal tax deduction, and mentioning that a third party must do the energy modeling. So federal tax credit or tax deduction is here. I was not aware that a third party had to do the energy modeling, but that's Matt's comment to us, so I'll research that and verify that. But he's probably right because he's usually pretty good about those things. And that was it for the questions that are pending right now. All right, so on the utility side, commercially, there's quite a few programs available, both in Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, and Michigan. I'm not going to read through them line by line, but I will point out some of the highlights. Once again, just like the residential, the Illinois programs expire on May 31st. Wisconsin, Indiana, and Michigan generally expire on December 31st each year. And then most of these programs renew every year, and they're ongoing type things. So here's the ones with Nightcore. A lot of the Nightcore stuff is exactly the same as last year, so I won't beat a dead horse. But you can see down there on the bottom for space heating condensing boilers, they got to be 90%. And then depending on the size of the boiler will determine what your rebate is. So you put in a 500,000 BTU boiler, you get a $2,500 rebate, for example. There is also rebates available for non-condensing boilers at the 85% tier, but obviously it's less money. There are rebates available for steam boilers. They got to be 80%. It's also size tiered, and it's significantly less money than the hot water boilers because 80% obviously doesn't save as much energy as 90 or 95. But you can't have a condensing steam boiler. At least I haven't seen anybody with one available yet. There are rebates for furnaces. So this is if you're putting a residential size furnace into a commercial building. For 92, 95% furnaces, you can get $200 and $250 rebates, just like you could if it wasn't someone's house. There's a $700 rebate for infrared heaters. So if you take out existing, unit heaters on the air side and put in infrared heaters instead, low intensity type, you can get a $700 rebate for each infrared heater. It is not tiered based on the size, so if you put in a 50,000 BTU heater, it's $700. If you put in a 200,000 BTU heater, it's $700. The idea with infrared is the energy savings comes from lowering your thermostat set point. Direct energy shining on you feels warmer than heating the air, and hence you can lower your set point on your thermostat and save some energy that way, even though the appliance itself may only be like 82% combustion efficiency. There is a rebate for gas storage water heaters. They are, like residential, they have to be a 0.67 energy factor, and you can get a $200 rebate. And there's also a rebate if you put an 88% thermal efficient water heater in, you get a $150 rebate. For some reason, those dollar amounts are inverted from what you would think the energy savings would be, but that's just how the math worked out on the particular program. So that stuff's all the same so far. This stuff's the same. There's rebates for repairing or replacing existing steam traps, for adding pipe insulation onto hot water systems, for adding a programmable thermostat. That's only available on smaller heating equipment under 300,000 BTUs. It's not available on larger equipment, probably because the code on larger equipment is going to make you do it anyway. And there's rebates for pool and spa covers. That's all the stuff that was the same. Some of the stuff that is changing. Some of the rebates, like we just said, related to some of the things like boiler controls and tune-ups are changing, condensing unit heaters are changing, and then some new rebates have been added as well. And then one rebate, the combination boiler, was removed from the program completely. So we'll go through a couple of these ones now. So one is a new rebate for pool and spa. I said that wrong. Pool and spa heaters. That's a new rebate. It's got to be either an 84% efficient pool heater or an 88% efficient pool heater, and you can see on the right-hand side different dollar amounts for those efficiencies and those tier levels. And yes, a condensing boiler installed for the purpose of heating a swimming pool is a pool heater, even though it's not like sold and branded that way. It's still being used for that purpose, so it still does in fact qualify. So if you put in a 500,000 BTU, like a ModCon 500 boiler to heat up pool water, it'd be a $2,250 rebate. Boiler controls is not really a new rebate, it's more of a changed rebate. This rebate is now tiered based on the size of the boiler. It's 50 cents for each MBH of the boiler, up to a maximum of 1,500. Previously, it was a straight up $250 rebate. So now you can get larger rebate for a larger boiler, and this generally means adding outside air reset controls to the boiler is what this incentive is intended for. Adding outside air reset to a new boiler. Adding outside air reset to an existing boiler is what this rebate is for. If you have a new boiler, like one of these ones I showed up on the screen a minute ago, like these guys, that outside air reset is already required and hence not an additional rebate. It's part of this one already. So you do not get the double dip. The boiler tune-up program changed as well. This is now a tiered program based on the size of the boiler. So it is 40 cents per MBH up to a maximum of 1,500, whereas previously it was a $350 rebate. So if you were doing really small boilers like 100,000 BTUs, you probably love this program and you were getting paid pretty good for it. If you were doing larger boilers like 1 million plus, it was not a very strong rebate. So now it's tiered to match the size of the boiler. So you got to do a boiler tune-up, including a combustion analysis and a printout of your combustion analysis. So if you don't have a CO meter, you probably need to get that. Condensing unit heater rebate is $2.50 per MBH. So now it is a tiered rebate based on the size of the condensing unit heater as opposed to a fixed dollar amount like it used to be last year. In addition to the regular steam trap rebate, there is now a category for industrial, process type steam traps based on the pressure that's involved, medium or high pressure. You can get $200 or $250 per trap. And then on the commercial side of the equation, if you come up with something you want to do that's not included in all that stuff I just listed, for example, maybe you want to do an energy recovery ventilator, or maybe you want to install a demand controlled ventilation system that throttles back the ventilation air when there's less people in the building. You can do those things as a custom rebate program, incentive, and you can either get 75 cents or $1 per therm, depending on the savings. The programs work a little bit differently. You have to get pre-approval on these. If you just do the boiler change-out stuff, you don't have to get pre-approval, although it's probably recommended. On the custom stuff, you absolutely have to do pre-approval because they got to be able to go there and do a pre-site walkthrough. The other thing that's really different about these is that it's not a fixed dollar amount that you get. It's based on how much you actually saved in that very first year since you did the measure. And they do normalize it for weather and things like that to make it fair for a mild year versus a really cold year. But you can get quite a bit of money. The incentives for this, the maximums, have increased substantially. You can now get up to 50% of the project cost, up to $500,000. So some of these projects can get pretty big. So think of energy recovery ventilators, burner retrofits, some specialty thing at a farming agricultural place, whatever. All right, so on to Peoples and North Shore gas. And I'm going to check the questions here real quick as well to see what else popped up. All right, we're good on questions. We're caught up on that. So Peoples and North Shore gas, once again, Peoples serves Chicago. North Shore serves the east side of Lake County plus a little bit of Cook County. I got these two grouped together again because they are owned by the same parent company and the programs are actually identical in this case, and they have the same application form. So it is basically the same program. Peoples and North Shore are both part of Integris. So the new rebates that are being added this year are rebates for pipe insulation, more rebates for steam traps, pool and spa covers, and infrared heaters. Those are the ones that are brand new that we did not have before. The rest of the rebates we had before, but they might have been slightly tweaked. So, for example, there's rebates for boilers. So if you put in a 90% boiler that's greater than 300 MBH, you get a rebate of $4 for every MBH. If you put in a smaller boiler that's under 300 MBH, you actually get $6.67 per MBH. I'm not sure why we couldn't round that one off, but that's fine. So you get it's kind of like the Nightcore one. The Nightcore one had tiered buckets. The Peoples and North Shore one is based on a specific amount of MBH. There is a $2 per MBH rebate for condensing unit heaters. And then down in the bottom there, you can see there's a rebate for adding boiler outside air reset controls. It's a fixed dollar amount of $250, although they were talking about maybe tiering that based on the boiler size, so I don't know if that happened or not. And once again, you cannot double dip and get that outside air reset at the same time you're getting an outside air reset built into the new boiler you're buying above. If you put a residential size furnace into a commercial building, you can get a rebate of $225 or $400 for 92 and 95%. If you put in an infrared heater to replace unit heaters, you can get a rebate of $4 per MBH. And you do see the note on here that outdoor infrared heaters are not eligible for this, and that's true pretty much for all of these utility programs. If you're doing something to heat air outside the building, like a beer garden or something like that, none of these programs are going to apply whatsoever. On the water heating side, there is a rebate for gas water heaters. Once again, the target is 0.67 energy factor. Most of these programs are honed in on that because that's the Energy Star level. It's a $200 rebate. If you got larger unit heaters, the rating does not use EF. It uses thermal efficiency, and the rebate's $150 for those. Indirect, if you couple it with a boiler, is $200. And then tankless is $100. Once again, you got to be a 0.82 EF on a tankless. There is a rebate for programmable thermostats. It's $40. It's obviously got to be installed on gas equipment, not electric equipment. There's rebates for pipe insulation, both for domestic water, hot water for space heating, and then steam piping. And the dollar amounts are higher based on the typical higher water temperatures. So $2 for domestic, $4 per foot for hot water, $8 per foot for steam. There's also a boiler tune-up program. It's 40 cents per MBH. Same kind of thing as the Nightcore one. You got to do the combustion analysis and all that good stuff. There's a rebate program now prescriptively for tuning up industrial burners. And then there is rebates for pool and spa covers. Here's the steam trap rebate, which, by the way, is one of the most common rebates done in the state of Illinois. Apparently, steam traps are pretty easy to find failed ones and then change them out. But they have it here based on the pressure of the system. You can get different dollar amounts available. The other interesting thing they have here is they'll actually pay you $5 to survey each steam trap. So if you go into a building that's 100 steam traps and you survey each one, it's $5 per trap to survey them, and then if you actually have to repair or replace them, that's when you get to $60 or $150. So they want to encourage you to go look at every single one, and they'll pay you to fill out a form showing what you found on each of these guys. And that down on the bottom is some industrial process type steam traps for even larger dollar amounts, and they also do have the steam trap testing survey. This survey thing is pretty much the only rebate I've ever seen from a utility that is paying you to not even fix anything and improve energy. They're just paying you to go check it. And then obviously you're probably going to find a failed one, and hence why they want you to do it. If there's something you want to do special that's not listed on those, you can do a custom rebate. It's $1 per therm saved in the first year. Once again, 50% up to $500,000, just like the Nightcore side of the equation. Got to have a pre-approval, and it's based on your actual savings over the course of the first year. All right. Check the questions here real quick. Okay, we're good on questions. All right, the ComEd side of the equation, on the electric side. Quite a bit of stuff did change on this, but quite a bit of stuff is exactly the same. So on the screen right now, you see the chiller rebate. By the way, I should mention that the middle of last year, ComEd eliminated the rebate program for rooftop units, packaged rooftop units, and split system DX systems. So there's no longer rebates for that whatsoever. But I'll go through the rebates of what there is. There are rebates for chilled water systems, either water-cooled or air-cooled. So the way it kind of works is you got to decide whether you got air-cooled or water-cooled. Let's say I have a water-cooled machine. Then you got to decide what kind of compression do you have. Is it centrifugal? Is it scroll or screw? Or is it reciprocating? Let's say it's a screw machine, so I'll pick that middle one where it says scroll or rotary. And then once I do that, I got to decide which size range I'm in. Let's say I have a 200-ton screw. So that guy's going to be 0.52 kW per ton IPLV that I have to hit. IPLV is integrated part load value. This is the part load efficiency of the machine based on an AHRI test. The full load efficiency for the ComEd program is irrelevant. It is not used whatsoever because there's almost no run hours at full load for most plants. So they go by the part load efficiency, and you have to do IPLV, which means you have to get the machine's rating at the standard IPLV conditions. If you have your own conditions that you're testing the machine for your own application, because you're going to run it a little bit different, it doesn't matter. You still have to do the selection of the machine for the regular AHRI IPLV conditions. So then what you do is you get $20 per ton on a water-cooled machine, plus you get an extra $3.50 per ton bonus for however much more efficient you are than 0.52 in our case, in our example. So if I had a 0.50 machine, that would be an extra $7 rebate, so I get $27 per ton, right? If I had one that was a 0.42 kW per ton IPLV, that would be 10 better, so it would be a $35 bonus, so the rebate total would be $55 per ton. So that's kind of how that guy works. The air-cooled works very similarly, although they don't ask what kind of compression you have. It's just what size is it, less than 150 or more than 150 tons. Gives you a little bit of target difference. You got to hit 0.86 or a 0.85. Once again, it is part load IPLV, and in this case, it's $30 per ton plus a $3.50 efficiency bonus. Generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, obviously all the machines I've looked at have been Carrier machines because that's where I work. All the Carrier water-cooled machines I've ever looked at have always qualified for a rebate, some of them a very substantial rebate of over $60 per ton. On the air-cooled side, most of the smaller tonnage machines can probably hit this 0.85 pretty easily. The larger tonnage ones, you probably got to look at each machine individually to see if it hit it or not. But if you need help with that, let me know. I can certainly help you guys with that. There's also rebates for room air conditioners and P-Tacks. This is room air conditioners used commercially only. It's $30 a ton. P-Tacks are $30 a ton. The efficiency levels are based on the size of the machines. These are fairly difficult numbers to hit, so most room units and P-Tacks do not qualify. One of the most exciting HVAC rebates, at least one of the most commonly claimed ones, is for variable speed drives. You can add a variable speed drive to an HVAC chiller compressor and they get $25 per horsepower. You can add it to a HVAC fan or pump and you get $60 per horsepower, or you can add it to a pool pump and get $100 per horsepower. So up on the screen there are some of the guidelines. The basic rules of thumb are you cannot be replacing an existing variable speed drive, right? It's got to be a new installation, so you're putting it on something that used to have inlet guide vanes on the fan or a triple duty motor on the pump or something like that. If you're going to put a VFD on a new rooftop unit, assuming the old rooftop unit did not have a VFD, you can also qualify for this. So I said there's no longer any rooftop rebates, which is true for the cooling and heating efficiency of those machines, but you could get a rebate if that new rooftop is going to happen to have a VFD on it. The most exciting thing that's new with ComEd is all the building automation rebates, and there's quite a few of them. This is the main one. A lot of the custom applications that came in were for building automation systems, so they decided to standardize it and make it a a standard rebate. However, it is a little bit different than the other standard rebates. You still have to get pre-approval for this one, unlike a chiller rebate or a P-Tacks rebate or something like that. So it's kind of, it's prescriptive, but it's kind of still custom a little bit. So you do have to get pre-approval. The rebate is for 20 cents per square foot. And up there is the specs of what you have to do. You got to be adding, time clock control. You got to be controlling the outdoor air dampers. You have to have a graphical interface. The setback has to be at least 8 degrees in heating and 8 degrees in cooling. Setback has to be at least 2,200 hours, which is not that much. It's just 40 hours a week. Almost every building could probably do that. Another thing that's kind of interesting is that depending on the kind of system you have currently determines whether you're eligible for this or not. If you have an existing building automation system, you are not eligible to get this rebate. If you have existing 7-day programmable thermostats, you are not eligible for this rebate either. So it's got to be basically somebody who has an old pneumatic system or an analog control system that's just out there doing its thing, that doesn't have any time clock function to it, and then you can get this. If you're going to do some of the other rebates like economizers and demand control ventilation that I'll mention in a second, you are allowed to double dip on those. The other thing you have to do on this rebate is you have to do at least one of the extra strategies on the next page that I'm going to show you. So if it's under 20,000 square feet, you have to do one of them. If it's more than 20,000 square feet, you have to do at least 3 of them. These are the choices that you have. I'm not going to go through them all right now, but if it's under 20,000 square feet, you have to pick one thing off of this list on top of the regular specs. And if it's above 20,000, you have to pick 3 things off this list. Most of this stuff is pretty straightforward stuff. Optimal start-stop routines is pretty much standard with the DDC system. Controlling of the economizer, supplier reset, static reset. Some of the things you've heard us talk about in controls classes over the years. So it should be pretty easy to pick 1 or 3 things off this list and add it on to what you're doing. If you need help with it, let me know. ComEd also has control rebates related to hotel-type guest rooms. And depends on what kind of heating you have. If you have electric heating, the dollar amount's higher because ComEd's getting additional savings, obviously, in both seasons. If it's a cooling-only machine, it's less. So $65 or $25 per guest room to put it on some kind of occupancy sensor or key card type system. They also added a rebate this year for demand control ventilation. It is 3 cents per square foot, although they like to list it as $30 for every 1,000 square feet because $30 sounds better. But it's 3 cents per square foot, and you can do that as a standalone thing. So I can add CO2 sensors to an existing rooftop or air handler, or I could do it in combination with this building automation deal. So instead of 20 cents per square foot, I can get 23 cents per square foot if I also do DCV at the same time. DCV generally implies using a CO2 sensor, and in the ComEd program it does require using a CO2 sensor. The program specifically is targeted towards office spaces. However, if you have a different type of space, like retail or an auditorium or a school, a private school, you may still be eligible, but you need to talk to the folks at ComEd to decide if it's going to be one that they accept or not based on the conditions of your project. But office buildings are pretty much accepted out of the gate. There's also incentives for adding DCV to parking garages. This kind of DCV does not use CO2 sensors. It uses CO sensors, or in the case of diesel vehicles, you use an NO2 sensor. You get $50 per exhaust fan horsepower for this particular rebate. This one is targeted towards parking garages specifically. However, if you have an application to use DCV on another vehicle space, the ComEd folks said they would entertain that discussion. No promises, but you can call and decide based on what you're doing in your facility, like a a car dealership or something like that. You may be able to do this also, but you got to ask. And then lastly, the third DCV rebate is for kitchens. It's $350 per horsepower to basically vary the speed of the fan based on what's going on in your overhead hood. Another new rebate for ComEd is the Economizer Rebate. If you add an economizer to an existing rooftop or air handler, you can get $40 per ton rebate on that. If you buy a new rooftop or air handler, you are not eligible for this rebate because by code you have to get an economizer anyway, so they're not going to be able to rebate you for something you have to do by code. But if you want to retrofit an economizer onto an existing unit, you can do that. They're not very picky on whether you use dry bulb or enthalpy or differential. You're allowed to use any of those types. And then just like the other utilities, ComEd has a custom rebated commercially. If you do not see something on the prescriptive list that meets with what you're trying to do, you can apply for a custom rebate. It is 7 cents per kilowatt hour saved over the course of the first year based on actual measured data. They do normalize it for weather and all that kind of stuff. The payback has to be between 1 and 7 years. None of these utilities will give you a custom rebate for something less than 1 year because they figure you're going to do it anyway. And it's got to be less than 7 years, so that way it's cost justified. ComEd also has a brand new custom rebate program that's available that's 6 cents per kilowatt hour saved. However, it's guaranteed. Whereas the 7 cents per kilowatt hour is based on what they measure over the course of the first year. The reduced amount for 6 cents means they'll do the calculations and they'll guarantee it. And so you'll just get that out of the box regardless of whether you actually save the exact amount they thought or not. Let me check questions here. We probably got about another 10 minutes of topics. Let me see. Got a question from Bob asking how do you determine if a steam trap is operating properly? On these programs for the utilities with the steam traps, they're generally looking for traps that are failed in the open position, which means you're bypassing a lot of steam unnecessarily, which is obviously an energy waste. And some of the ways that you typically can do that are measuring the temperature on the pipe on both sides of the trap, right? So if I got steam coming in on the left side and it's whatever, I don't know, 250 degree temperature on the pipe, and on the right side I got 250 degree temperature also, I can pretty much tell if that trap is wide open and everything's flowing through it. The trap should only open for a few seconds to relieve the condensate through, and then the trap should reclose. So measuring the pipe on both sides of the trap is one common way to do it. Some guys like to use the thermal cameras as well. If you got one of those, great. Hopefully that answers your question, Bob. The last thing for Illinois before we switch to a couple other states, in Illinois, if you are a public sector building, meaning that you are a government, a municipality, a library, a public school, a water treatment plant, any of those kind of things, a university that's public, if you're a public sector building, you do not get your rebates through the utilities. You don't go to ComEd, Nightcore, Peoples North Shore, or Ameren to get your rebate. You go to the DCO, Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, which is a state department. You go to them to get your rebate. It's still funded the same way, so it still comes off your Nightcore and ComEd bills and all of that. It's just that when the utilities collect that money on your bill, they give 25% of it over to the DCO to dedicate towards public sector projects. The ones that apply for the utilities directly are the ones that are private-owned businesses. So like your own office building where you work is probably in that case, right? If you got a private school, like a Catholic grade school or something like that, it would be a utility. If it's a public school, it goes to DCEO, right? So most stuff's going to be the utility, but you will have public sector buildings that get applied for a little bit differently. So they have some different programs as well. And looking at some of their stuff, they do have packaged rooftops on this program as well as split systems. It's $100 per ton, which is actually pretty good compared to other programs throughout the country. And you have to hit a certain efficiency level based on the size of the equipment. For example, if you put in a 10-ton rooftop, it's got to be at least 12 EER, which gets a $100 per ton rebate. They also have rebates for chillers, both water-cooled and air-cooled. It works very similar to the ComEd program I just mentioned. In this case, though, it's either one of $2 amounts. It's either $33 a ton or $66 a ton for water-cooled machines. If you hit a certain level, you get one or the other. Air-cooled machines, there's two levels as well, $50 per ton or $100 per ton. I'll show you those levels in a minute here. And they also have rebates for room and P-Tacks units, but they're fairly hard to hit those levels. That top table there is the chiller tiering. So level 1 and level 2, either $33 or $66 on the water-cooled stuff, or $50 or $100 on the air-cooled stuff. For example, if you hit level 1, it's got to be a 1.04 IPLV part load efficiency, and you can get a $50 per ton rebate. However, if you get an air-cooled machine that's down to 0.86, you get to double your rebate for $100 a ton. 1.04 is pretty easy to hit. Almost every air-cooled machine can probably hit that. The 0.86 is a little bit tougher, and certain sizes and stuff will probably make it and some will not. But it works exactly the same way as ComEd. You got to figure out what your IPLV is and then calculate your rebate based on that. DCEO also has rebates for VFDs. It is $92 per horsepower, which is very large. It's one of the more aggressive ones in the country. Like I said, the ComEd one was $60 a horsepower, which is good. This $92 per horsepower is awesome. DCO also has rebates for changing out motors. So depending on the horsepower, RPM, and type of motor that you have, you can get an additional rebate between $4 and $4.50 per horsepower to put a new motor on. That motor rebate is available with or without a VFD. You can do it either way. Basically got to get a NEMA premium efficiency motor, which is pretty much the only motor you're going to find stocked on anybody's shelf these days. DCO also has rebates for geothermal heat pump systems. So it's kind of tiered, and the way it kind of works is if you have an all-electric building today, you can get a rebate, an all-electric meaning electric resistance heat. You get a rebate of $60 per ton, or excuse me, $600 per ton, plus you can get a $50 per ton bonus for every EER you are over 15. So if I put in a 15 EER unit, 15 minus 15 is 0, times 50 is 0, I get a $600 rebate. If I put a 16 EER unit, I get a $650 rebate. If I put a 17 in, I get a $700 rebate. That's kind of how that works. If I'm replacing this guy on a system that has natural gas heating and is not electric resistance, then that's $250 plus the bonus. And if I'm putting it on a system that already has a ground source heat pump and I'm just updating my heat pumps to newer ones, and I have old ones that are less than 13 ER, I can get a flat $200 rebate per ton. There's also rebates for furnaces using a residential furnace in a commercial building. If you put in, it could be 92, 94, or 96% AFUE, corresponding to $5, $6, or $7 for every 1,000 BTUs. So this one is tiered based on the size of the furnace. You get more or less money. Gas boilers, same kind of thing. The gas boiler one did change from last year. Most of these rebates are exact same as last year, but the gas boilers did change. If I got a condensing boiler that's under 1 million BTUs, so for example, like a Modcon, what would be a good example? A Modcon 500, right? So I would have 500,000 times what, $7? So I'd have $3,500 rebates. What that would end up being. And obviously, condensing boilers are incentivized better than non-condensing boilers because they save more energy. There's also water heaters on this program as well. You only got to be a 0.65 energy factor, and you get a $300 rebate, but it's got to be bigger than bigger than 50 gallons. So it is for a little bit larger ones. There's also a rebate for tankless, and there's also a rebate for condensing water heaters at $600 per unit. And then like the other programs, the DCO for the public entities has a custom program. It pays very well. It's 12 cents per kilowatt hour on the electric based on your first year savings, and it now increased up to $1.50 per therm on the gas side, which is huge. So boiler projects should be pretty popular in public schools and things like that this year. And then lastly, there is a program called the Boiler Tune-Up Program. It was a pilot program. It's supposed to become permanent. I do not have details on what the levels are this year. So on the screen right now is last year's levels, but they would basically give you a rebate to tune up a boiler, $300 for a regular boiler, $600 for a modulating boiler. The steam traps also fell under that program, and pipe insulation fell under that program. So the state has programs like that. The other big difference with the state programs compared to the utility programs is that they expire on May 15th instead of on May 31st. And that's because they want more time to process the paperwork, because some of the state rebates will actually be a grant instead of a rebate. So it's processed a little bit differently, so there's more paperwork, so they need more time to do it. So pay attention to that come next spring. All right, let me check the questions real quick. We're good on questions for right now. The DCO also runs a program in conjunction with CDAC. And this is not just for public buildings. This one is for public or private buildings. The only group that's excluded from this, I believe, is not-for-profit organizations. For some odd reason, it doesn't apply there. But it could be public buildings, like a municipal building or a fire station, or it could be a private building, like your office building or your shop. So this is basically a program that does an energy audit and analysis of your building and determines where the energy savings can be. They also do retro commissioning services as well. That's and some of these are either free or they're highly subsidized. The energy assessments are free. The retro commissioning, well, the retro commissioning will be free if you actually implement the things they recommend. If you don't, then I guess you'd have to pay. All right, switching over to the Indiana side. Indiana, like the residential stuff, all expires on December 31st and likely renews itself again on January 1st. These are the rebates commercially for NIPSCO for gas side. Boilers can be, smaller boilers have to be 90%, larger ones have to be 85%, and you're paid at 90 cents per MBH. There's also a program for boiler tune-ups. It's based on the size of the boiler. So either $100, $200, or on a really big boiler over 1.2 million BTUs, you're paid per MBH. Same kind of thing, combustion analysis, testing, cleaning, all that stuff. There's also rebates to add outdoor air reset to an existing boiler. It does not apply to a new boiler, just existing ones only. To add a modulating burner to an existing boiler. If you put a residential furnace in a commercial building and it's at least 90%, you can get a rebate. What else? Infrared heaters are $2.50 per MBH, so that's a pretty good one. Steam traps, once again, all these programs got a steam trap component to them. $75 to repair or replace an existing failed steam trap. $50 for a programmable thermostat, assuming the thermostat is on commercial equipment. 15 cents per square foot for DCV, so that's a really good one. You saw that ComEd one was only 3 cents per square foot. This one's 15 cents per square foot. And the main difference here is this one's gas, that one was electric. And there's quite a bit of gas used for outdoor air heating, and demand control ventilation reduces your outside air. So that's why this one pays that high. So 15 cents per square foot is really good on a DCV program. There's also tune-ups for gas furnaces or rooftops. And depending on the size of the burner, it's either $50 or $100. On the electric side of the equation, if you're a NIPSCO Electric, there are rebates for P-Tacks, which once again are fairly difficult to get. But there are also rebates for packaged rooftop units and split systems. That's those second and third ones on the list there. So it's $30 or $50 per ton for those. There are rebates for water-cooled chillers. That's typically $30 per ton. Got to hit a certain IPLV, and you have to have a certain full load efficiency. So this one's a little bit different than the ComEd or the DCO. NIPSCO requires you to meet a certain full load efficiency and a certain part load efficiency. And there's also rebates of $40 per horsepower for VFDs. Like the other programs, they also have a custom component. It pays 9 cents per kilowatt hour on the electric side, 60 cents per therm on the gas side. Similar kind of thing. The amount of energy you save over the first year times that rate determines your rebate. Lighting is less than HVAC on the electric side, just to note that. Let's see if we had any questions that popped up relating to the NIPSCO stuff. Nope, we're good on questions. All right. Some of the local groups have commercial rebates as well. So that same one we talked about residentially, Wabash Valley Power Association. They also have commercial rebates that are on top of the utility rebates, so you could double dip on those to some degree. Although maybe not in all cases. You got to kind of read up on that one a little bit. But they'll give you some additional rebates here. And generally speaking, it's on different stuff than the utility had. So like Economizer's on this one, but not on the other one. For example, Geo's on this one, but not the other one. We get up into Michigan. Once again, it's the Efficiency United program. The specific utilities that we deal with there on the gas side are Michigan Gas and Semco Energy, but this does apply to many utilities up that way. They also have a steam trap repair or replacement option. Gas boilers got to be 88% efficient, and it ends up being $1.50 per MBH. There are steam boiler rebates as well. Residential furnaces installed in a commercial building get $150 if they're 92%. Let's see what else is interesting. Outside air reset controls is $300 per boiler as a retrofit solution. They have tune-ups for boilers, so 21 or 50 cents per MBH on the tune-up depending on how the boiler is used, space heating or process. There's tune-ups for gas furnaces, which I believe also includes the furnaces inside the rooftop units, but I have to check on that one to be sure. $4 per MBH on infrared heaters, $75 for a programmable thermostat, which is a really strong rebate. Installation of steam pipe, and then they also have hotel occupancy sensors, $50 per room. On the water heating side, you can see here there's pipe installation on the water heating side. 0.67 energy factor water heater gets $25, $150 for putting a 88% thermal efficiency water heater in. Tankless is on here for $90. Pool heaters are on here. Pool covers are on here. There's rebates on here for insulation and infiltration on loading docks if you get into that kind of stuff. On the electric side, it's the same Efficiency United program on the electric side. The utility we generally deal with our customers there is Indiana Michigan Power. There are rebates here. That first section is for packaged rooftops and split systems. You have to hit a certain SEER or ER level, and you get $10 per ton. That's a fairly small dollar amount, so that one probably won't get much excitement. And they also have rebates for heat pumps that work in a very similar fashion, $10 per ton based on the size. Air-cooled chillers got to be less than 1.2 kW per ton, which is pretty much almost all air-cooled chillers that are available on the market today. So you get $20 per ton for that. If you got water-cooled chillers, it's based on the size of the machine. You have to have a full load and a certain part load efficiency. So it works kind of like the NIPSCO program. I got to be a certain efficiency at full peak load, and I have to have a certain efficiency IPLV for the part load, and then I get $20 per ton on those guys. And then VFDs can be either $50 or $100 per horsepower, whether it's for a fan or whether it's for a pump. And then they also have a CO2-based DCV rebate. It is 2 cents per square foot. And then there's also custom programs like all the utilities have. This one pays a little bit less than some of the other ones, only 4 cents per kilowatt hour, but I think electricity is a little bit less there, so it kind of works out. But it's based on the first year savings, and you do a custom application. Like I said, it could be anything from an energy recovery wheel to a boiler economizer to a burner retrofit to a building automation system installation, something like that. Specific towns, like on the res side, those same towns, like Niles, for example, have some extra commercial rebates for package systems, thermostats, building automation at 4.5 cents a square foot, DCV, hotel rooms, VFDs, things like that. All right, so then getting us to our last one, which is Wisconsin. Let me just check the questions real quick. We're good on the questions, it looks like. All right, so Wisconsin has one of the longer standing programs. It's called Focus on Energy. Website is focusonenergy.com. They've been doing this for seemingly ever, so their program is a little more detailed and refined. But it works in a similar fashion. Certain pieces of equipment get certain efficiencies. So putting a modulating hot water condensing 90% small boiler in is $200 rebate. If I put in a larger boiler, like down here on the bottom, it's based on the size of the boiler, and it's based on so many dollars per MBH. By the way, all the MBH things I've been talking about for all the utilities are related to the input MBH, not the output MBH. So if I put in a condensing ModCon 500 boiler, it's going to be $2 per MBH. So it's going to be, what is that, $1,000 rebate. There's also rebates for putting residential furnaces in a commercial building, either $125 or $275 for a 90 or 95% furnace, and they have to have an ECM motor on them. Adding outside reset controls to a boiler is $75. Infrared heaters, $2.50 per MBH input. Condensing unit heaters are on here. P-Tacks heat pumps are on here. And then demand control ventilation is on here. This one's a little different. The other DCV programs were based on square footage. Wisconsin does it based on CFM. So it's $50 for every 1,000 CFM. They do have energy recoveries on here as a prescriptive measure, which is pretty cool. The other utilities do allow ERVs to be rebated, but they're done on the custom program. Wisconsin has standardized it. Like I said, they have much more history and years of doing this, so they kind of know where these things fall in. Anyway, if you do an ERV, it is 75 cents per CFM rebate. They have rebates on here for smaller split systems under 5.5 tons. If you get 14, 15, or 16 SEER system, you can get a rebate. This is the rebates for chillers. In this case, like some of the other states, like Indiana and Michigan, you have to do a full load efficiency and a part load efficiency. You got to meet both. However, in this case, Wisconsin actually calculates the rebate based on how much better full load you are and how much better part load you are. So it goes into this little formula, which seems fairly complex, but once you do it, it's fairly easy. You just multiply the, you find out how much more efficient you are at full load kW per ton, and that becomes A. How much more efficient are you at part load, and that becomes B. You add those two together, multiply by 250, add a random number of 15 or 12, and then multiply it by the tonnage. So yeah, it's a little confusing, but it's just math, and all you guys can do that, so don't worry about it. Once again, you got to decide whether it's an air-cooled machine or a water-cooled machine, and then if it's water-cooled, you got to decide if it's centrifugal or if it's a scroll. I don't see anything on here for recips, so I'm assuming if you have a recip, which I don't think anybody does anymore, but if you did, you'd have to do a custom application. The part load IPLVs are most machines can probably hit them, and then some of them that are even better will get you a bigger rebate. There's also a rebate for $50 per horsepower on a VFD when it's used for HVAC equipment, fans, and pumps. There's rebates for steam pipe insulation. There's rebates for adding combustion management controls to your boiler system, and they also have the popular steam trap repair replacement type stuff. There's also custom programs available as well. So it works similar to some of the other utilities. In addition to the Focus on Energy program, one of the utilities, We Energies, that we deal with in Wisconsin, has some specific rebates for small businesses and nonprofit groups. So you can get some rebates for boiler outside air reset control, steam trap repair, furnaces, programmable stats, water heater replacements, indirect water heaters. So there's additional rebates on top of what you probably can get from the other programs. They also have a nice program for free energy assessments where they'll come out and survey the building with you and give you ideas on what to do. Got some rebates for condensing boilers, for tune-ups on gas-fired equipment, insulation rebates. So there's all kinds of stuff going on with that one. These ones expire a little bit later. They already expire a little bit earlier. Excuse me. They expire in 5 days, but I suspect they'll probably be renewed in July. But I don't know that as a fact yet. But they expire in 5 days. If you are in the city of Milwaukee proper, you are also eligible for the Milwaukee Me2 program, which is similar to that residential one I showed you earlier. Same website, smartenergypays.com, where you can get a specific incentive based on how much energy you save over the baseline of what you got now. So it can be up to 20, 40, or 60% of the project cost based on how much energy you saved. That's for small businesses. If you're a large business, you're still eligible, but the dollar amounts are a little bit less. There's also some low-interest financing available for this program as well. That's for City of Milwaukee specifically. And then if you are in the City of Racine specifically, there is another program there that's very similar to the Me2 program in Milwaukee. It's the RE2 program. And you got to get 15% better efficiency, and then you can get some special financing related to doing that. So you can get your rebate from the utility plus get some special financing. There's tons of other programs out there. We just kind of scratched on these and focused on the HVAC stuff. But if you get involved in other industries, just know that there's stuff for those: refrigeration, lighting, kitchens, data centers. Sometimes some utilities have specific programs related to data centers, battery charging stations. Sometimes there's programs for special small business or not-for-profit groups. There's usually additional programs for new construction. There's tons of free energy audits available, both residentially and commercially. And if there's not a free one, there's probably a low-cost one available. There's free and low-cost retro commissioning services. Some utilities have programs specific for schools, different than the regular programs, or other industries like agriculture. And some of them have low-income weatherization programs available too. All right, so that's everything. That's everything I know about utility programs in an hour and a half wrapped up for you. I don't see any other questions pending. If anybody does have any questions, please do type them in the chat box down there, and I'll be happy to address them. I'll stay online for a couple more minutes. And then if you have questions after that, you're welcome to email or call me. My information is on the screen right there. And with that, I thank you very much. If anybody else types a question in the next couple minutes, I'll answer it right now. All right, so one of the questions that came in is from Austin asking if VFD incentives are available for new construction or only replacement of existing motors. All right, so a couple of things there. Most of the utility programs And Austin, if you're really asking about a specific utility, type it in and I'll answer it. Most utility programs have a VFD incentive that is for an existing motor that you have today, and there's rules about how the motor is controlled today. It's basically got to be running, fixed speed type thing, no inlet guide or no VFDs on it whatsoever. New construction programs sometimes fall under the same program as the existing programs. Some utilities have a separate, unrelated program for new construction. So it depends on how it goes. In Austin's case, he just typed in, he's asking about ComEd. So the way the ComEd one works, if you read the program, it implies that it's for existing motors only. However, if you work with the guys at ComEd, fill out the application, talk with them, specifically the guy you probably want to talk to is TU is the guy's name, the engineer over there. He does all the VFD stuff. You can probably do the new construction VFD on that form. However, if you're doing a new construction, there's probably a lot of opportunity to do a bunch of other stuff, so you might want to go the new construction track instead. And in that case, there's some energy modeling involved, and you need to save a certain amount of energy above the code baseline for the building as a whole, and then you can get X amount of dollars. So the VFDs would help with that. So with a more efficient chiller and all this other stuff would add together to get you a big rebate. However, if you did have a new construction and you just want to get the VFD rebate only and you didn't want to do any of the other stuff, you could probably get it done on the regular application that you have. If you have questions about that, let me know. But Tula is the engineer that would probably be involved with helping with the VFD. Any other questions? I don't see any other ones typed in. So I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. If you have any other questions, then just give me a call this afternoon or whatever, or send me an email at your convenience. Thank you very much.